All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, current New York Yankees general manager Brian Cashman should thank his lucky stars that former team owner George Steinbrenner is no longer with us because he would have been fired as GM a long time ago. And this is not the first time that I've said this. But in a recent interview with Andy McCullough of The Athletic, Cashman blamed the Houston Astros for the Yankees' current World Series drought. And of course, in saying so, Cashman is referring to the Astros sign stealing scandal with a point of interest during Major League Baseball's investigation centering around the 2017 American League Championship Series, which Houston won in 7 games on a walk-off homer by Jose Altuve. Now, in the Athletic, Cashman said the one thing that stopped the 2017 Yankees was something that was so illegal and horrific. So I get offended when I start hearing we haven't been to the World Series since '09 because I'm like, well, I think we actually did it the right way. Pulled it down, brought it back up, drafted well, traded well, developed well, signed well. The only thing that derailed us was a cheating circumstance that threw us off. Now, of course, there's no ifs, ands, or buts around it. The Astros cheated and they got caught. Okay, that was 2017, but you still haven't been to the World Series since 2009 if you're Brian Cashman. Now, with that said, the Yankees are a perennial playoff team. And, they have missed the playoffs a couple of times, 2014, 2013, and 2016. But nonetheless, you have to go back to 1993 to find the last time that the Yankees had a losing, pardon me, 1992, to find the last time that the Yankees had a losing season. Now, after the Yankees won that World Series in 2009, they were still in contention. They got to the LCS in 2010 and they lost to a very good Texas Rangers team. And then the Yankees had to deal with the fact that Derek Jeter was getting old. Of course, all of the steroid controversy around Alex Rodriguez. And there was a rebuild. And there was some people that felt like the Yankees weren't even going to finish with winning records. But you got to give a lot of credit to former Yankees manager Joe Girardi for that. Because let's be realistic, there were some years in the mid 2000s where that Yankee team was pieced together and Girardi was still able to keep them in contention, guide them to a winning record. And even in 2015, he got them to the wild card game. Nonetheless, when the Yankees began to turn the corner in 2017, then all of a sudden, the rumor was, that there was a disconnect between some of the young guys and Joe Girardi. And of course, they just wanted to get rid of Girardi, and they did after the 2017 season, in spite of the fact that he had them 1 game away from the World Series. And of course, one of the big problems that Joe Girardi talked about was Gary Sanchez. And what happened? The Yankees ultimately did trade Gary Sanchez. So you look at it right now, Brian Cashman used Joe Girardi as a scapegoat in order to save his job. He brought in Aaron Boone. Now, Aaron Boone has led the Yankees to the postseason in each of his 4 years. Had a couple of 100-win seasons, but still no World Series to his credit either. With that said, though, the bottom line is for both Boone and Cashman, they would have been gone a long time ago if George Steinbrenner were still around and in his heyday. So that's the saving grace because now that the Yankee dynasty, so to speak, has been passed on to the younger generation, they just don't have the same love, that a George Steinbrenner had for this club. And for me, with Hal Steinbrenner, really calling the shots for this club right now. Yes, the Yankees are spending a ton of money. They just haven't been spending it lightly or wisely. We saw them get suckered to take Giancarlo Stanton off of the Miami Marlins hands. And what have the Yankees gotten out of that? Garrett Cole so far has not been the big name pitcher or the big game pitcher, should I say, that the Yankees expected him to be so far. He still can be. But what about Cashman? Some of his bad signings, a la Jacoby Ellsbury. These are things that you cannot gloss over. So I think it's very arrogant of Brian Cashman to just center on 1 year when he's had so many years, so many questionable decisions, and yet and still, he's still calling the shots for this Yankees front office. So for me, he made Girardi the scapegoat. And, any way you slice it, this team has not been there since 2009. They haven't even gotten to the Fall Classic. And of course, with the success that the Yankees were able to have in the 90s and the 2000s, their fan base really expects to be in contention, and not only be in contention, to get to the World Series and win it every single year. Obviously, it's easier said than done, but the expectation level definitely has increased. Now, for me, in regards to Cashman, at some point he has to find a way to take some responsibility. I talked about his bad signings. They've been good enough in recent years to make the playoffs, but being good enough to make the playoffs and being able to do some damage there, they're two different things. And of course, that has not panned out for the Yankees recently. For me, it's a lack of accountability, it's arrogance for Brian Cashman, and I think I think he needs to get over the fact of what happened with the Houston Astros several years ago. They cheated. There's no way around it. You cannot deny it. They did. But nonetheless, you know what? If we're heading into a new baseball season and this is still going to be your cop out, if you're Brian Cashman, I guess you're basically saying, well, if something happens this year, well, we can look back at 2017 as far as the Yankees not winning. So if you're a Yankee fan and you see your team struggling, I guess you can expect Brian Cashman to go out there and say, well, look at 2017. I gave you a championship team that year, but we were denied. So you got to deal with it. But unfortunately, nothing's going to change in the Bronx because you know what? Hal Steinbrenner has given Brian Cashman too much leeway. And what has happened in the past couple of years, and each time it happened, I said what the final result was going to be. The Yankees were going to win just enough for Brian Cashman and Aaron Boone to keep their jobs, and that is what has happened the last couple of years. We saw it in 2020 in the shortened season. We saw it last year when the Yankees came on at the end to get a postseason berth, and because of that, Aaron Boone was able to get an extension, and Brian Cashman is still the general manager. The only way that things are going to change in the Bronx is maybe if the Yankees miss the playoffs and if they have a losing season. So we'll have to wait and see what happens for the 2022 version of the Yankees. But the way things are going, it sounds like their general manager is already waving the white flag. So we'll have to wait and see. But at the end of the day, Brian Cashman needs to get a clue, get a reality check, and get over what happened 5 years ago. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take the time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There is also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.